Dear listeners, I have so much to tell you, and I often don't know where to start. It seems the world doesn't want to admit that sometimes we make mistakes and that sometimes the wrong person gets punished for something they didn't do. Not all of us have been personally affected, but many of us have been impacted by this reality. And I feel like it's my responsibility to share these stories with you and to tell you what I've learned about wrongful convictions. In our last episode, we heard the devastating story of Jeff Deskovic, a young man wrongfully convicted at just 17 years old, despite DNA evidence that excluded him. Today, we pick up where we left off, at the moment Jeff's world shattered with a guilty verdict, and we follow his extraordinary path towards freedom. In this conversation, Jeff takes us through the relentless, often heartbreaking fight to clear his name, navigating appeal after appeal, enduring rejection after rejection, and ultimately spending 16 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. He shares how the Innocence Project helped exonerate him and how he emerged not just to reclaim his life, but to dedicate it to freeing others and reforming the very system that failed him. From wrongful conviction to wrongful conviction lawyer, Jeff's journey is one of unimaginable resilience, purpose, and transformation. He's a living testament to the power of channeling trauma into advocacy. And today, we get a deeper look into how he built a new life after so much was taken from him. If you thought our conversation about his wrongful conviction was powerful, you'll certainly be moved when you hear what he's doing now, because Jeff's journey didn't end with freedom. In many ways, it was just the beginning. And so this is a conversation about redemption, purpose, and the ongoing fight for justice. It's about turning pain into power and how one man's mission is helping to rewrite the stories of others who've been silenced for too long. So, welcome, Jeff. Last time we left off at the horrifying moment that you were convicted of a crime that you did not commit. And I'm hoping that today you can kind of walk us through how you cleared your name. And then maybe if you can share with us some of the things that you've been up to since you've come home.
Yeah, absolutely. So I appealed my conviction. My lawyer argued, I have a different lawyer now at this point. My lawyer argued I was innocent based on the DNA and that my rights had been violated by the manner in which I had been questioned. All the issues that we talked about before were raised in appeal. The court ruled that I was because I was the court claimed that I was not in custody, that I was free to come and go as I wanted, and therefore they ruled the statements were voluntary. They wrote that there was overwhelming evidence of guilt, which doesn't make sense because the DNA doesn't match me, and they knocked out all of my other issues. There were a total of 10 issues, so they knocked out 8 issues in one sentence by writing, "We've looked at my remaining contentions and found them either to be without merit or else not preserved for review." So they ruled against me 5-0, and it was all downhill from there. The re-argument motion was denied in one word, denied. The New York Court of Appeals declined to give me permission to appeal to them, so I lost that way. I lost in federal court because my lawyer was given the wrong information by the court clerk and about the filing procedure, and so my petition arrived 4 days too late, which former Westchester District Attorney Janine Pirro, her office took the position that those 4 days were prejudicial, and so the court time barred me. I challenged that ruling at the Federal Court of Appeals. I got permission to appeal. Future U.S. Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor and her colleague, Judge Pooler, they upheld that ruling. They declined my re-argument motion, and the U.S. Supreme Court declined to grant me permission to appeal. So we're 11 years in now. My appeals are over. The only way back in is if there's a change in the law or if I could find some new evidence that probably would have resulted in a different outcome. So I had no money to hire an attorney or an investigator to find evidence. So instead, I embarked on a letter writing campaign. I wrote letters for 4 years, rarely getting any answers other than the occasional no. I went to the parole board where, in large part, because I maintained my innocence rather than expressing remorse and taking responsibility, I was turned down for parole or ordered to do 2 more years and then come back. I wrote a book author in care of a publishing company, but somebody at the publishing company instead sent it to an investigator, and she ultimately connected me to the Innocence Project.
Okay.
So getting their representation was the first key. The second key is that Pirro left office and her successor was willing to let me get the further testing because besides fighting all 7 appeals, Pirro's office blocked me from getting further DNA testing twice. So Pirro's successor
Oh,
was willing to let me get the further testing. And the third key was that we got lucky that the actual perpetrator's DNA was in the data bank. So the data bank had been created. So we were able to
oh.
go beyond saying the DNA doesn't match me. We were able to repeat that and then say, but it matches him because he killed a second victim just 3.5 years later, a school teacher who had 2 children, after killing the victim in my case. So when it matched him, he admitted he was the person who committed the crime. So my charges were dismissed on actual innocence grounds, and he was subsequently arrested and convicted for killing the victim in my case.
So was the DNA, the real perpetrator's DNA, had it been in the system for a long time?
It did. He stayed free for 3.5 years after killing Angela. So I was out for about a year. So after my first 2.5 years, we both were in the prison system simultaneously, not in the same facility, but in the same New York State prison system. Yes, it wasn't a
But
DNA.
so had your request to have the DNA tested many, many
Years
times
before that.
previously, had that been granted, you could have been out so much sooner
Exactly.
if if there was an acknowledgement that, hey, maybe we made a mistake here, right? Which
Yes.
I find is such a common theme in cases of wrongful conviction, that nobody wants to admit that a mistake was made, that something could have gone wrong, right? That there's this just hard belief in we did everything right. And so the result that we got is correct. And there's never an inclination to review it. But because of that, we end up with cases like yours where you probably served what, maybe 8, 9, 10 years more than you should have.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because I originally asked for the data bank testing in 1990, 97, 98. So I could have been out then rather than in September of 2006. So yes, I could have saved 8 or 9 years.
That just makes your case even more tragic. Like listening to everything you've gone through, I'm thinking that it can't get worse. And then you're sitting there going, "Here, hold my beer. I'm gonna make it worse for you." And you come up with stuff like this, and it just keeps getting more devastating. How did you manage to come home? Like, how was it for you to finally come home?
Well, while I was in prison, it wasn't just the absence of my freedom. Okay, I had to keep fighting off feelings of helplessness, hopelessness, thoughts of giving up,
Of course.
suicidal ideation. In terms of how I got through, belief in God was one thing. A second thing is I didn't focus on having a 15 to life sentence. I just have to hold on for a year or two until the next appeal would be decided, which I was sure I was going to win because I believed in the justice system and I knew that I was innocent. So that was part of it. I used to collect articles about other people who were exonerated, and I used that as motivation, but also studying who helped them, what route did they take. I used to go to the law library to learn the law, and that gave me a sense of empowerment. You know, I used to read a lot of nonfiction books. There was another prisoner named Frank Sterling who was also innocent, and Frank and I used to get together once every 6 weeks, and half the conversation would be trying to keep each other going morale wise, and the other part of it would be like a brainstorm about what's the next move to make. So he actually was exonerated by DNA testing a couple of years after me. So it
Oh,
wasn't.
wow.
So it wasn't that I was naively believing that somebody else was innocent just because I happened to be, but he actually was innocent. And then I had a pen pal that showed up in the last year of my incarceration that I didn't know. Anyway, he responded to an ad, and I was asking a stranger I didn't know from anywhere, "You think I should just give up? Should I just commit suicide? I'm never going to get out of here." So he kept me going. So all those factors kept me going. In terms of, when I got out, um, my first words at the press conference were, "Is this really happening?" Like I thought I finally managed to do it, that I finally managed to lose my mind
Yeah,
And I'm in a delusion, okay, and I'm
no doubt,
back up
no doubt.
and see the prison bars and everything else there. Uh,
And when you've been told denied so many times, like repeatedly ad nauseum, why would you believe that this time it was not denied?
and I have to say, when I got the news from my lawyer the day before that I was gonna go home, um, first of all, it took me like 3.5 hours to, just to process that, to accept that. And every now and then she would say, "You ready to talk about tomorrow?" And I would say, "No, no, no, not talking about tomorrow. Not going home. Don't play with me like that."
Yeah.
Oh, and finally, what made it real at the end was she looked up at the clock and said, "Look, visiting hours are almost over. I got to get your shoe size, your suit size. You could be presentable in court, and there's a ton of stuff to do with the media." So that made it real, and I felt better for 5 minutes, because then
Okay.
another fear came in my head. Something's going to happen between now and tomorrow. The DA is going to change their mind. They're going to do
Sure.
what they always do, which is, fight me and win. But, in terms of reintegrating, I mean, it was a very difficult initial 5 years of freedom. Okay. So
Okay.
I had to see mental health professionals 4 times a week for 6 years to help deal with the psychological after effects and to try to manage, new life. There was a social stigma. So I had been in prison for 16 years wrongfully, but I was still there. So how did that rub off on, did any of that rub off on me? Was it safe to be alone someplace with me? So that was a factor. I was always passed over for gainful employment because I didn't have the job experience, and none of the would-be employers had any patience for any kind of on the job training. So I lacked.
And you've also got a 16-year gap on your resume that how do you explain that away?
Correct. Yeah, exactly. So I did catch on as a weekly reporter, but it was a weekly newspaper. They only wanted one article a week. I was making money doing speaking events, but you only get paid if you get booked. So I didn't have much money coming in, and I lacked stability of housing as a result of that. So I bounced from place to place, and at one point I was a couple of weeks away from a homeless shelter. Technology was different. Cell phones, GPS, internet hadn't
Oh
been
yeah.
created. My
Right, because you went in
I went in at 1990 at 17. So those things
in
had.
1990 and you came out 2006. So, yeah, like let's all listeners take just a second to think back at how much the world changed in those 16 years. And I'm guessing, Jeff, you had no idea of any of these changes that were going on. It's like you went in one world and you came out, and it was literally a completely different world when you came back out.
That is completely correct. And I want to say that the combination of the new technology, the culture, and cities and towns being different, it had the cumulative effect. I felt like I was in a parallel world, a world
No doubt.
that I didn't belong in. And lastly, my extended it was awkward when I would meet up to my with my extended family, because the overwhelming majority of them never came to see me, and the few that did, it was often spaced out like 3 years in between. So, so all those things made for a difficult time. But at the same time, from the press conference where I spoke a couple of 2.5 hours off the cuff, everything I ever wanted to say in 16 years but could not get anyone to hear me came out. Then again, I was speaking, I was writing, I was regularly meeting with the elected officials, urging them to pass legislation to prevent other wrongful convictions, and I was trading privacy for awareness through media and ultimately new media interviews. I got a scholarship from Mercy College, which is now Mercy University. So that's how I avoided the homeless shelter. They allowed me to live on campus beyond the scholarship. So I got the bachelor's because I had gotten GED, associates, and another year towards bachelor's at the time that the funding of college education for prisoners was cut. So I was able to finish the degree that way. Tried to get into law school, didn't get in, did get compensated after 5 years. And so I took some of the money and I started the Jeffrey Deskovic Foundation for Justice, which, since opening our doors in 2011, we've been able to get 15 people home, and we help.
That's incredible. Congratulations. That is some hard work.
And we help, thank you. And we help to passed nine laws. A lot of them with the coalition group were part of It Could Happen to You. And I got a master's degree. I figured the master's would make me a better advocate. So my thesis is written on wrongful conviction causes and reform. And at some point thereafter, I became unsatisfied with sitting in the front row of the courtroom. I wanted to sit at the defense table. I wanted to represent some of the clients. I wanted to make some of the arguments. So I made another foray to try to get into law school, and this time I did get in, and I graduated law school in 2019. I'm an attorney, and I've helped to overturn several wrongful convictions, including one where the client was exonerated, and we have a lot of other cases in progress now.
I am at a loss for words at your determination and just your ability and your want to work in the system that was so stacked against you. What made you even think that you wanted to work in the legal system?
Because I wanted to, I wanted to free people in the same position that I was in, and to do that, would need to be a lawyer, and the policy stuff is towards preventing what happened to me from happening to somebody else. But just to further clarify, I don't look at my being as a lawyer like I'm somehow doing a favor to the system. No, I'm there to help people in the same position that I was in. I'm trying to be the person that I wished that I had. So that's
Oh,
what my mindset is on that.
and that's amazing. No, I just mean, I don't know, after having been through what you went through, I don't know that I could voluntarily walk into a courthouse again because you know what? The last time I was there, I was sent away for 16 years. Like, I'd have some trauma just walking into the courthouse, and you do this on a regular basis. Like, this is absolutely incredible, and it is such a testament to your character. And I cannot give you enough admiration for what you do on a daily basis. And I think this is absolutely fantastic. And what is it like for you to walk into the courthouse?
Yeah, I do have memories there. I do feel some trepidation within, and I overanalyze my own actions a little bit because of that. And, because I still feel like I'm at the mercy and power of something much larger than me. But at times, so I do have that going on. But at the same time, what I also have though is I'm willing to go the extra mile. Okay, the prosecute. They're not my golf buddies. Okay, their
Yeah.
wife,
Yeah.
my wife, aren't having drinks on the weekend. I'm there for one thing and one thing only: to advocate on behalf of my client that I'm convinced is innocent, or I wouldn't be representing them. And I could care less if you get angry with me or what. I'm just gonna let it rip, in a respectful, professional way. But I won't hesitate, like I've said before. So, in other words, what they'd like you to do, Your Honor, is they'd like you to keep an innocent person in prison because of this technicality that they're advocating. Is that what the court is willing to do? Are you willing to go along with that, Your Honor? I'm not afraid to say things like that.
Amazing.
But I want to share with you an important thing. I think is that I'm not an angry person. I want to enjoy my life as much as I can. I can't do that if I'm angry or bitter. Another line of reasoning is that I've lost so much as is. Why would I want to, in effect, lose the rest of my life, which is really what I would be doing if I was to be angry or bitter. It's not like if I was angry or bitter that I would somehow be impacting the people that had a hand in it. And what happened to me, I really would be the only loser in that scenario. And the vehicle that allows me to actualize that is I take that energy that I feel and I channel it into the advocacy work that I do. I know that I'm doing the work I'm supposed to do in the world, and with that, I have my sense of purpose, and I have my inner peace.
And did you have that outlook when you first came home, or is that something you've developed over time?
It's I had that developed over time. Like I had like a idea of that when I spoke off the cuff and decided to do advocacy work, but I think it became deeper, more enmeshed, and my vision towards that enlarged as time went on.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, again, God forbid I have never been in your shoes, but I always say when I speak with exonerees that you are far better people than I could ever be, because I don't know that I would have the capacity to come home and not be angry and to not be resentful, right? But it just, when I speak to exonerees such as yourself, where you've taken your trauma and you've channeled it into such good, and then you can say, and I honestly believe you, that you're not an angry person and you're able to move forward and do good things, right? So absolutely incredible. I see that we are just about at time again for today. Um, and so I'm hoping that we can come back next time. And I know that you are currently engaged and you have a fantastic fiance, and I would love the chance to speak with her. So I'm hoping that on our next episode, you will be joined by Samantha.
I would absolutely come, and Samantha will participate. And I have to share, I'm very, very, very proud. A little teaser. This is Samantha's first interview ever.
And I am absolutely thrilled that she has decided to join us for her inaugural interview. So we will see you again next time. Thank you again, Jeff, for your candid conversation.
Thank you for having me on.
Once again, I cannot adequately express my gratitude to Jeff for sharing not only his experience, but his insight, his strength, and his unshakable commitment to justice. Jeff's story is a powerful reminder that wrongful convictions don't end at exoneration. They echo through every part of a person's life, emotionally, socially, professionally. And yet, Jeff has managed to take all of that pain and turn it into purpose, working every day to free others, reform broken promises, and be the kind of advocate he once so desperately needed. And speaking about what comes next, Jeff will be back again soon. We're going to talk about love, healing, and what it means to build a future after so much loss. And while today's letter may have piqued your interest, this is only part of the story. There's still so much more to tell. The effects of wrongful convictions are far-reaching. They touch us all. I'll write to you again soon as I continue my conversations with those whose lives have been impacted by a wrongful conviction. But until then, I remain wrongfully yours. If you have something that you want to talk about with me, or even if you want to just send me some words of encouragement, you can drop me a line at wrongfullyyourspodcast@gmail.com. You can also check out my website, kellylozon.ca, for more information about me and the kinds of things that I do. And so, if you were touched by this episode, please consider sharing it with others, liking and following the podcast on your favorite platform so you don't miss what comes next. And as always, thank you for listening to Wrongfully Yours, where we believe that telling these stories is the first step towards preventing the next injustice. And until next time, stay curious, stay hopeful, and keep fighting for justice.